Hi. I'm King Loki, the editor of Deathwish Poetry Magazine, with one of our awesome writers. We have Mike Linehan with his new piece that was in the spring edition. Yeah, spring edition, Resurrection. I don't know. Time passes very very quickly for
hmm
me. But yeah, this piece is called The Body. Hey Mike, how you doing?
I am doing well, thank you. Trying to survive this very, very hot day right now and doing my best. But yes, enjoying the summer so far.
Yeah, as much as we can, right? With everything
hmm
going on. I mean,
Yeah, in the hellscape.
the hellscape known as America,
America.
the empire
Yep.
formerly known as America, right?
Now I'm just playing the Empire Strikes Back music in my head.
Yeah. That's where we are, right? Speaking of which, did you want to read your poem?
Of course, yes. I got to put on my good old slam poet persona for a second because this one actually, well, I'll explain it more in a moment once I've read through it. So yes, this one is called The Body. When people ask me why I love metal music, the demon dissonance, the writhing mosh pit of vipers, I say I was raised Catholic. When people ask me why I like horror stories, the bloody knife, the allure of foggy graveyards, I tell them I was raised Catholic. I mean, what could be more ominous than gathering in an incense-fogged church and staring at the carcass of a deity, praising his sacrifice and eating his literal flesh and blood? When people ask me why I stand with the marginalized and the oppressed, those seen only as beggars, I can only sigh and say nothing. Though I now avert my eyes from the crucifix, though hymns taste bitter on my tongue, though prayers feel like missed calls, I still hold reverence for that carpenter turned Messiah, son of immigrants burdened with blessing, friend of sex workers and tax collectors, thorn in the side of Pharisees, executed as an example by an empire. Weren't we all taught that we are the body of God, his feet treading the path, his hands mending the broken, so that even if God seems silent, we are not, and we have power in our own palms? What a mockery we have made of the holy, stealing the corpse of compassion, bleaching it under an American sun, parading it along banners of status quo and bootstraps gospel. Behold these ruins, this desecration. A den of wolves and salivating maws, fingers probing and plucking innocence as flower petals, resplendent in gold, eyes blind to beggars upon the doorstep. When people ask me about my love for metal music and horror, a charnel house of cacophony, my disillusionment and my fist in the air, I say, look at where I came from. Look upon this body, rigor mortis and rotting, broken limbs reaching toward the silent sky, mouth open like an empty grave, waiting for the crows to feast upon the divine that is now dead. I ask you, what have we harvested from the dried bones of our own divinity? Do you see this pit of vipers? Hear the symphony off-key like Pharisee melodies and demon dissonance? You stand in the fog-shrouded ruins of this godless cathedral. Do you hear something shuffling in the shadows, grin like bloody knives and splintered scripture between its teeth? Behold these bodies beneath the floorboards, bloodied fingertips from clawing for escape, their throats full of headstones, their bones bound to form foundations of this church! Don't you feel like screaming?
Yeah, it's a tour de force.
Thank you. Just a little bit of background on it. I was trying to remember. I think this one I wrote actually while I was on Slam Poetry Team last year, but I think I wrote it in the fall, so it was like 2023, maybe?
Okay. So after you had finished and published Porchlight, right?
I had finished, I'm trying to remember if I had published it before or after, but I had finished putting it together. It was just waiting to be released, I think, at that point. But yeah, it got, polished polished up last year after some revisions and whatnot. Yeah, I mean, did you have a particular question to ask about the purpose of it, or should I just go into like what's it all about?
Well, I have a pretty good idea, but why don't you just tell me?
So I will admit the inspiration came from a comedian I've seen on mostly Instagram, Luke Severeid, I think his name is. But the first bit I saw from him was he's like, oh yeah, going to metal shows, people tell me a lot that like I need Jesus, and it's like, how do you think this all started? I spent every Sunday in church, eat his body, drink of his blood, seeing a guy nailed on a cross, like that's metal as fuck, and I'm like, that's a fair point, and then got me thinking about like that connection with myself and horror. Horror itself also has this kind of overlap too with religion too, especially with Catholicism being very, like we said, like very gory, and there's no shortage of like religious horror, typically demon possession, stuff like that. But I really latched onto the idea of growing up, being told, we are the body of God, we are what we bring into the world, trying to be a force of good. But then looking at how especially the capital C church itself hasn't really met that, or has certainly lost its way somewhere along the way, and has been, at pretty destructive force for generations, centuries, and yeah, just wrestling with that and kind of kind of digging up this like rotting corpse of an ideal and showing it, be like, hey, what the hell is going on here?
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. I find that this piece is trying very hard to appeal to the cultural like idea of Jesus as like, the man of the Messiah of the downtrodden, the
Mm-hmm.
friend to, the little guy really. So the doctrine or anything like that. When talking about American society, those let's call them Catholic values are kind of like universal to Christianity, right? Like your typical guy who doesn't really go to church that often but thinks of himself as a Christian and maybe hates them dem liberals, and votes for Trump. It's like, well, your idea of Mr. Jesus is this totally chill guy that stood up to the Pharisees and died for it, right?
Right. Yeah, it's this disconnect that we've seen more and more of, especially in the past, decade. Especially with the rise of Trump and all that crap.
Right, right.
Is that there's the disconnect between I'm not a churchgoer anymore. My parents are practicing Catholic still, but just seeing the disconnect between these people who some have doubled down on the whole like, well, Jesus wasn't this way. Some have even been like, well, we don't follow Jesus anymore. We follow the like real idea, the Americanized version. I go, yeah, that's not really supported by any scripture. That's what you're using as your basis. It's all bad, and like, especially with shit going on currently with deportations and alligator Alcatraz and all that. Like literally all of this can be debunked of like, oh, I'm a follower of Christ, but I believe in Trump. Is like you just open up the revelation, like when I was hungry you fed me, when I was poor you gave me place to stay, all that stuff, and then just the complete opposite that we're doing.
Here's the frustrating thing. It's like immigrants are the current scapegoat that the administration is going after in order to seize power. And Trump is out there going, thank you, God, we love you. And it's like, you bring it back to, I keep going back to this one stanza. What could be more ominous than gathering in an incense-fogged church and staring at the carcass of a deity, praising his sacrifice, and then eating his literal flesh and blood? And it's like that idea of the Jesus is very primal. I mean, it clearly comes from like older religions and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably the real core. It's the God dying and giving up his body so that everyone can flourish. And like that's just not an American ideal. I don't think Christianity is compatible with capitalism or this weird fascist nightmare that we're currently watching unfold, right?
Right. Yeah, and I mean it's like I've seen for years the idea of like Jesus was a brown socialist fighting against the empire and all this stuff, and it's like, okay, cool, but like as time goes on I'm like, but it's not even really an exaggeration, it's not hyperbole, like it literally, that's what he called for. And just yeah, and also I always got a kick out of the Catholics have this thing about witchcraft and whatnot, to be like, oh, this evil stuff. I'm like, we're literally lighting incense, we're saying chants, we're not metaphorically, because apparently the Catholics believe that like, what's it? I'm going to mess up the word. Believe that like by saying this holy thing that we turn the bread and wine into literal body and blood of Christ. Like that's magic. Yeah, transmutation. Yeah.
Oh no! It's transubstantiation.
Transubstantiation. Yes.
There we go. There we go.
But like that's magic. You're believing in magic. So
yeah.
Again, whatever.
Man, they put a lot of emphasis on that Eucharist. Like, I have a friend whose Catholic mom she always has these like weird little Catholic magazines and these little publications that are just about the Eucharist, and like they're nuts. I have one upstairs. It's just like, how can we know ourselves when we don't know the Eucharist? The Eucharist is so important, and they talk about it like it's this mystery that binds the universe together, and it's like you're just symbolically eating crackers, like.
Yeah. Which, like, I'm in all over the place when it comes to spirituality, but, like, you can believe in that stuff. Like, I empower you to do so, but, like, there also has to be some sort of self-awareness about it, too, especially when you're pointing the finger at other religions and whatnot. But, yeah, unfortunately, it, seems that Christianity has just been weaponized for a while, but more evidently in recent years. I was at a local pride parade or pride celebration with my wife, and there was some guy on the street who I should have figured out as soon as he handed me that pamphlet. It said, like, abortion is murder or something, but I took it. It was all covered in, like, rainbows, but you open it up, and it's got, like, a dead baby inside talking about abortion. And I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, every time. Yeah.
Just every time. And, it's not a pride celebration, my dude. Like,
He knows
Yeah.
the audience. But here's the
Yeah.
thing, like, I think this piece was written before. I don't remember. There's so many of these characters in our culture right now, but one of them said something about the sin of compassion, which was like crazy to me. Like, what a crazy
Yeah.
thing to hear. And you have this line here, what a mockery we have made of the holy, stealing the corpse of compassion, bleaching it under an American sun, parading it under banners of status quo, and bootstraps gospel. Yeah, like my thing is that like Jesus would have been kind, you know? He
Yeah.
wouldn't show up yelling and screaming. Like the only people he was mean to were those money lenders in the in the
One of my favorite stories because it is just so punk, and because everything else is like pretty chill, and then that one time he just lost his shit and just kicked people out. I'm like, I mean, good for you.
and it was those money lenders. Like there's not a story where he picks up a rock and starts throwing it at someone, calling them a harlot or a thief, or
Mhm.
calling
And
for those people across the river to be to be genocided. Like that never
yeah,
happens. Like the stuff I don't like in the Bible is when he's like calling non-Jews like dogs, or
mhm.
I don't know, preaching about going the people who will go to hell. Like that's the stuff where I'm like, this is just the same character. But what stands out, of course, is the open-handed compassion that he offers, and like that's not a virtue. And but where I was going with this was like, it sounds like what you're concerned about is like people are more concerned with the ritual and the theater over what the ideals ought to be.
Right. No, absolutely. Like, and again, I can appreciate when it comes to religion that rituals and practice are an important part of it. But if you're not following the concepts and the values behind it, then it's an empty gesture. It's straight up hypocrisy. I was actually thinking of something recently, not having to do with religion, but it kind of was inspired by this quote, which again, being a lapsed Catholic, and now I still can't just forget any of it, is something about like beware the Pharisees, the hypocrites who like
Hmm.
pray loudly in public and like make this big show of their faith. Blessed are the ones who do it more in private or something. Like it doesn't have to be this big thing, contrition or compassion. Like you don't have to do it for the views or the likes. Like you just be a good fucking person to other people. That's it.
Right. It puts me in mind of the Kurt Cobain, where he's like, he's the one. He likes all our pretty songs. He
Yeah.
likes to shoot his guns and he likes to sing along, but he don't know what it means. You know.
Right. But yeah, like what you're talking about, like being at a pride event, like most of his, the people he hung out with were, the fishermen, the sex workers, like I'm sure there was preaching on the side, but that was at least at the beginning the true meaning of like unconditional love was like it wasn't like here's my pamphlet, believe in me or else you go to hell. It was a process. It was still rooted in improving the lives of people rather than just making it what it is now.
You know, go to church and get married and pay your taxes, or you're going to go to hell.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and of course the irony of like the trying to deport. Like, the idea is, like, if Jesus was alive today, like, he would absolutely be called, like, a socialist. He would be deported or whatever it would be. Like, you can't make this shit up. It would be funny if it wasn't, actually happening and, on point.
The new term they're throwing around is remigration, where they're looking to like take people that are citizens and encourage them to deport, like self-deport, and it's just like, what are we doing? Like, Croatia is kind of, I think it's Croatia. They're pretty white and they're not doing too well. Like, what's this ethno-state business? So I don't know. I think that like my thing is that like right now I'm writing a lot of poetry that is reflecting on my frustration and weakness and feelings of inadequacy in the face of like an oppressive zeitgeist. Your poem feels like it's more focused on your frustration with people's hypocrisy, because I get the sense that you like Mr. Jesus as a figure, as a character, right? If
Mm-hmm.
nothing else.
Yeah.
Like, that's probably fair to say.
Yeah. No, and that's fair. I will say that, like, recently too. I mean, for better or for worse, that the current climate does lend itself to writing protest songs, protest poetry, because that's how we survive and that's how we fight back. But yeah, no, it's no matter what my feelings are about Catholicism and Christianity in general, now the idea of Jesus and what he stood for, that is still important to me. And the like you said, compassion, the empathy, and the idea that someone could come out and say that the sin of empathy. I'm like, what the fresh fuck are you talking about? But yeah,
Yeah.
it's the hypocrisy of it, and I think it should be just said, just to acknowledge that, a little disclaimer is that, this obviously doesn't go for all Christians. Unfortunately, it's just the loudest ones that seem to be the biggest hypocrites. But, like, I actually know someone who was instrumental when I was younger and more religious. I would have assumed she was a little bit more traditional herself, but she's actually been, standing, in these protests along with these other people as well. Like, it, to me, she is embodying what that should be all about. And it's this idea that, like, it's funny to me that I've seen sometimes I felt more welcome in other religious circles than I have in Christianity, like going to the Satanic Temple in Salem, or I've got some friends who are witches or pagans. Like, the way they talk about it is like, this sounds empowering and great. Like, there's none of the judgment and the bullshit and the this us versus them rhetoric. Like, it's about protecting people, and it seems that unfortunately a lot of key figures have fallen away from that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, I always have a lot of sympathy for people that are into paganism, because they're fixated on like environmentalism, being kind to people, and all that stuff. Like, it all just becomes like another metaphor to clothe your own beliefs in. Like, I love the character of Thor. I think he's fantastic. He should be more mainstream. But like, that makes sense to me, and I don't believe in literal deities. I'm not capable of it. So it's more of the idea of the thing. And I wish that people were more honest with their beliefs. But that being said, I appreciate that your poem, it closes with this spooky, like, I'm gonna call it a tableau, where
Mm-hmm.
you ask the reader like to realize, like, they're standing in the ruins of what could have been, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I love it. Like, these bodies beneath the floorboards, bloodied fingertips from clawing for escape, throats full of headstones, their bones bound to form the foundations of this church. Don't you feel like screaming? And it's like, it puts me in mind of, because like, you do have the bit about the worshiping the carcass of the deity, but there's another morbid part of Christianity, and that's the martyrs. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there are countless, like, you could spend like years just reading these like grisly, horrific stories, and like, I feel like Christianity really puts a premium on suffer. Well, Catholicism really puts a premium on suffering for God, as it were. When you're kind of like, well, you should be suffering for God's will, which should be to show kindness and make the world a better place. And like here we're playing into the fascist playbook of scapegoating people to seize more power to build our church, right? Is that an accurate summation?
Yeah, it's literally what I was getting at. I was going to say, too, from a poetic standpoint, that the last stanza there, I'm a sucker for, I guess you would call it like a reprise, where, the images kind of come back full circle and are reused. One of my favorite poems from a local poet, saw like probably 10, 12 years ago, he came out with that, and I was blown away. I was like, oh, shit, I want to do that. But, like, so it seemed like a perfect thing to use here. But, like, it's exactly that. And again, it's not even hyperbole. Like, especially, like, was it in Canada, like, finding the places where they had done, like, the re-education center for, like, indigenous children and, like, literal, like, bodies found beneath these schools and churches, and you're just like, oh, this is literal. I'm not even making this up. And, yeah, it just kind of comes back to the don't you feel like screaming, which I feel like should be any just rational, empathic person's response to, like, really seeing all of this is like, yes, we should be doing something about it, but you should be angry. You should be horrified. You should feel something looking at all of this.
Yeah. Yeah, you should feel something. That's a good.
You should feel something.
I mean, I feel like screaming. Do you feel like screaming?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a really, really tough place to be in, and it's really upsetting when, like, the loudest voices are tarnishing something that you think is kind of neat and full of value. My last real question is, obviously this was written for like a slam poetry event, but is this possibly fodder for another book?
That you bring it up. It is included in the collection. I am trying to get it submitted to some, like, book contests and stuff, so we'll see. Fingers crossed. But yes, it is part of a larger collection that is tying mostly into actually horror, religion, and just social commentary in general. But yeah, it's an integral part of that collection there.
Excellent. Okay, cool. Good to know. All right. Is there anything else that you want to talk about with the body, or anything else in general?
I think my closing and just one final thought is to try to end on, like, a sort of hopeful note, because especially the past couple of years, I might have brought it up in my first interview, that, like, from the outside, you look at horror, or even, like, the music I like, metal and hardcore, stuff like that. It looks aggressive and, like, dark and morbid. And, like, yes, it is. But it's also a symbol for, there's a reason that a lot of people who gravitate towards it, who have felt othered or felt like they're not included, welcome at the table with everyone else. And being that it offers a space for people to find community and also to find a silver lining and see themselves in it. I'm reading a book right now about that falls into queer horror, where it's a bunch of kids sent to a conversion camp in the 90s. 15 years later, they come back and very It style have to destroy this creature that was, like, messing with their lives.
I think we have it here. Yeah. It's kind of popular right now.
Yeah, and it's reclaiming the space for ourselves and saying that, there is something good we're going to find in this, all that it appears to be, and, the horrors persist, but so do I.
That's cool. I like that. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, look, we don't listen to Behemoth because it's demonic and spooky and sounds cool. We listen to it because there's something there, right? There's just striving towards, whether it's individuality or finding your own light in the darkness. I mean, metal is just another form of art, and like all art is all about expression. And yeah, I love that. I appreciate that. That's really cool. So yeah, follow Mike on the Mic. Links in description and places.
Yes. Yep.
Read The Porchlight. It is for sale on Amazon. And was it Lulu, Mike? Okay.
It also, I don't know when this episode will be posted, but I was honored to be invited onto a pickup team this year, headed by my friend Luca Irowski, called the Peaky Binders. And it's a team of trans, masc, and non-binary poets. We're doing some competitions this summer, and we do have I think you pronounce it Kofi, whatever. And we got a chapbook on there of our some of our work, so I can send that along to you
Yeah.
you wouldn't mind including that as well.
Yeah, do so. And do check this book out. It's fucking brilliant. The Portrait is beautiful. It's a book about growth, about mistakes, about finding your way as a man, really, and not turning into a sociopath or an asshole. It's a really beautiful piece. And if you've read The Body, a lot of the poems in this book are written in a very similar kind of how do I want to say proselytizing style. I don't know. That doesn't sound right.
I get what you're getting at.
Yeah, no, Mike is not preaching. It's more of like he talks very extemporaneously in his writing, and it's very captivating, for lack of a better words.
Thank you.
Yeah, do check that out. Do follow Mike. He's super cool. He does slam poetry, Slam Till You Die, which is based in where?
Slam for Your Die, based in Manchester, New Hampshire.
There. I have a poor memory. So yeah, make art, write poetry, and love your demons. Ave Satanas.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Hell yeah.